Despite her forbidding exterior and controlled manner, inside she was a mass of neuroses, though this was something that she would not acknowledge to anyone, least of all herself. She had been brought up to believe that everyone should be self-sufficient, that turning to others for help was a sign of weakness. Afraid of revealing her true personality, Carole had always tried to keep people at arm's length, not allowing anyone to get close to her. That had certainly been her practice during her career at the Home Office. She had also tried to keep her distance within marriage, which was perhaps the reason why she and David had divorced. And when she had moved permanently to feathering in retirement, early retirement, Carole Seddon still kept herself to herself. She had acquired a Labrador called Gulliver for the sole purpose of looking purposeful, so that her walks across Feathering Beach did not appear to be the wanderings of someone lonely, but the essential behaviour of someone who had a dog to walk. So intimacy was not a natural state for Carole Seddon. Even Jude, her neighbour and closest friend, sometimes found herself shut out. Carole was hypersensitive to slights, quick to take offence, and she worried away about things, just as she was now worrying away about her use of Quiet Harbour. Like many people who lack confidence, Carole was wary of breaking even the most minor of regulations. There were many things in her life that she couldn't control, but one thing she could was keeping the right side of the law. Her work at the Home Office had encouraged her natural law-abiding tendencies, and she would try to avoid even tiny infringements like keeping a library book beyond its due date or being 24 hours late in applying for the road tax on her Renault. And Carole wasn't convinced that her using the beach hut was entirely 100% legal. The contact had come through Jude, inevitably from one of her clients. In Woodside Cottage, the house next to Carole's high tour, Jude worked as a healer and alternative therapist. Neither of these job descriptions cut much ice with her neighbour, who regarded as suspect any medical intervention that wasn't carried out by a traditionally qualified doctor. Whenever the subject of Jude's work came up in their conversations, Carole had to keep biting her lips to prevent the words New Age mumbo-jumbo from coming out of them. But she had to admit the benefits of her neighbour's work when it came to broadening their social circle. And on more than one occasion it had been through a client who had come to Woodside Cottage for healing that Carole and Jude had become involved in criminal investigations. It was in the role of client that Philly Rose had come to Jude. She was crippled by back pain, and, as was so often the case, the cause of the agony lay in her mind rather than her body. Philly, in her early 30s, and her older boyfriend Mark Dennis had moved down from London to Smalting some 6 months before, just at the beginning of January. For both of them it had been a new start, Philly giving up employment as a graphic designer to go freelance, and Mark chucking his highly paid city job to do what he had always wanted and be a painter. Cushioned by his savings and recent huge bonus, the two of them had embraced country living, involving themselves in everything that the South Coast had to offer. Their 2 sports cars were traded in for a Range Rover. They acquired 2 Cocker Spaniels, bought a sailing dinghy, planted their own vegetables. Both took a lot of exercise. Mark lost the extra weight put on by his city lifestyle. Their makeover seemed complete. Renting one of Smalting's beach huts was just another symbol of how deeply they were digging their roots into the new environment. And then, one day at the beginning of May, Mark had walked out. That was all the information Carole had. Maybe Jude knew more, but client confidentiality, or perhaps a wish to protect the woman's privacy, had stopped her from revealing anything else. What Carole did gather, though, was that her boyfriend's departure had not only shattered Philly emotionally, but also left her in dire financial straits. There hadn't turned out to be much freelance work for a graphic designer in West Sussex, and, having lost Mark's substantial contribution to their mortgage payments, Philly felt the threat of repossession looming. As a result, she was